Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityurma Amritam Gamaya Aviravirudhi. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kaviviridhitam Kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Srimadhatatam Bhuvi Gnanti Bhurida Janaha. May we be protected, may we be nourished. May we study with energy and vigor. May our study be enlightening and not give rise to hostility. Om peace, peace, peace. Lead us to truth and not to untruth. Lead us to enlightenment and not ignorance. Lead us to immortality and not death. Let the self-manifest Atman grow in me. Om peace, peace, peace. Your nectar-like words and warm and inspiring life stories, eulogized by learned sages, are indeed eradicator of shoots of ignorance from the seekers. These are auspicious to hear and propitious to inculcate in one's own life. Those who take these words to the world are indeed great benefactor of the world. So we are studying Sri Ramakrishna and his divine play. We are in a very critical, a very important juncture when we see how the incarnation chooses his vehicle to impart his teachings, to spread his message over to humanity. And as we know, Sri Ramakrishna interacted with Narendranath, and what qualities that Narendranath had, we have already discussed, but we'll continue to do that. But one thing, it comes to my mind, that a disciple should be Ashishta, Dradishta, Valishta. That means he is not only well established in spiritual truth, in a spiritual path, but he also should be well virtuous, and also physically also he should be strong. Physical, mental, and spiritually, the disciple should be strong. Ashishta, Dradishta, Valishta. And that is why Ashcharya Vakta Kushalo se labdha. So the speaker is also very special. Ashcharyavat pashyati kaschitena. So very few people can understand this. Very few people. Ashcharyavat, such people are very wonderful, strange, wonderful, because it is not given to each and every one. Very selected few can understand what is the spiritual truth. So, Ashcharyavat pashyati kaschit enam, Ashcharyavat vadati tathaiva chani. And that which cannot be spoken, some people speak. That is why such a speech is also wonderful, very rare. And such a speaker also is very rare. So, Ashcharyavat pashyati kaschidena, Ashcharyavat vadati tathaiva chanya, Ashcharyavat chaina manya srinoti. And some people who can listen and understand, it's very difficult. There is no example, there is no simile that we can use. So such people are very wonderful, very special. Such people are wonders, wonders of all of wonders. And Narendranath was such. That is why Sri Ramakrishna interacted with him. And so that he later spread his message all over the world. Now, why it is so why it is so difficult? So, Kena Upanishad says, Na tatra chakshur gacchati, no mano, na vidmo, na vijaniyo, yati tat anushishya. There, the eyes cannot go, because eyes are confined to go to physical objects only. What we cannot see, how can we speak about it? Not only eyes or senses go, even mind also cannot go. Mind is conceived in it. Mind cannot go. So is this impossible? Yes, in one way, na vidmo na vijani. We cannot know it as objects. Na vidmo na vijani. Yathitat anushishyat. But this is what we have heard. But anyat eva tat viditat atho aviditat adi. So whatever we know is different from that. And is more than what we do not know. Iti shrushruma purvesham yo nastad vichachakshila. So this is what we have heard. So is it that he's beyond conception, beyond our even perception? In one way it is. We cannot conceive. We cannot even think about it. But the good news is that we are that. We cannot know about this, but we are that. That is why it is so difficult. We can talk about anything else, but not our real self. Because then if we talk, then we are less than our real self. It is only to realize, it is only to be and become. It is not beyond our reach. The mind and speech cannot reach there, fine. But mind is and speech is based on it. Namo Namo Prabhu Vakya Manatita Manovachanai Kadhar. It is the base of the substratum of adhishtan of mind and speech. Therefore, in a reverse way, we are to realize him. So that is why it is very difficult. So such people who talk about him are very rare. And they are like wonderful. And those people who can listen, they are also wonderful because they comprehend. Only by some hints they understand. That is why we have 4 Mahavakyas. And by listening those Mahavakyas, one realizes when the field is ready and the seed are sown, then the fruit and the crop will come out. So this is also logical. So here we find such a person who can understand the message of an incarnation. And that was Narendranath. So here we'll see how Sri Ramakrishna interacts with Narendranath and how Narendranath interacts with Sri Ramakrishna. Yes, go ahead.
We're on number 3. Narendra's resolve to know the cause of that experience and not be overwhelmed again in the future. Although it has taken so long to describe all this, it actually happened in only a few moments, and yet it changed my whole way of thinking. I was bewildered and kept trying to analyze what had happened. I saw how this experience had begun and ended in obedience to the will of this extraordinary man. I had read about mesmerism and hypnotism in books, and I'd wondered if this was something like that. But my heart refused to believe that it was, for even people of great willpower can create such conditions only in weak minds. And my mind was by no means weak. In fact, up to then, I had been proud of my intelligence and willpower. Ordinary people are overwhelmed and become puppets under the influence of a great personality. But this man hadn't bewitched me or reduced me to that condition. On the contrary, when I first met him, I had decided that he was mad. Why then should I have suddenly found myself in this state? I couldn't come to any conclusion. It seemed an utter mystery to me. Then I remembered the words of a great poet. There are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy. I thought that this might be one of those things. After much reflection, I concluded that this mystery could not be solved. I determined to be on my guard lest he exert more influence over me in the future.
So here we find, though Narendranath had strong mind, strong willpower, but he was overwhelmed by the touch of Sri Ramakrishna because he was spiritual powerhouse, and therefore he could influence. And later Swami Vivekananda told this, that he had such a power that by touch, by even will, he would transmit spirituality to the seekers. So this is a great power, and since Narendranath experienced, he could not deny also. And at the same time, he could not understand because his mind was not ready, and it would take a few years to be ready to receive such grace. It is divine grace, and only few people can hold it. It is not for anybody and everybody. Yes, go ahead.
Fine. So you can tell the two stories. One, you can tell the story of Golapma about that thing that he eventually believed. And maybe we can refer to Complete Bucks, my master, where there is a very famous stop where he said that I did not believe before meeting him that you can give eyes to a blind, like Jesus Christ did, like many other spiritual seekers. But the moment he met Sri Ramakrishna, he started believing that even that is possible.
Yeah, that later it is there, and say Golapma's, that one, not Golapma, Gopalma. Gopal's mother. Yeah, Gopal's mother was a very simple woman. And Swami Vivekananda, this I have already told. Swami Vivekananda did not believe that Sri Ramakrishna had so many experiences. And even he never hesitated to tell that it is lunacy. But once Gopalma, mother of Gopala, baby Gopal came, and Sri Ramakrishna engaged Narendranath to talk to that lady. And she was a very simple lady. And that lady narrated all her stories, that how Gopal comes and sits on her lap and sometimes snatches her rosary and all kinds of things. And then she asked quietly, Baba means my child. I am an ignorant person. I don't know anything. But is this real? Then Narendra said, yes, mother, it is all real. So that is, that form, he who has no form, formless, he takes form. So this example is like that. But here it is not like that one. Spiritual touch transformed him. So this is very, very extraordinary. And it is, yeah, that second one, like touching, or Jesus Christ passed on spiritual power to others. So that is actually this, there is no, in a concrete example like that. So therefore, we avoid such things, but simple explanation, what we can understand, that we see here. Anyway, please go ahead.
4. Narendra's speculations about the master and his determination to understand him. The next moment I thought, how can I consider this person mad when he was able to destroy the strong structure of my mind at will, a mind that is endowed with tremendous willpower, and reshape it as if it were a lump of clay, making it think as he wished? But during my first visit, he took me aside and said so many strange things. How can I believe them to be true or to be anything other than an eccentric outburst? Because I couldn't determine the cause of the wonderful experience I've just described, I could come to no firm resolution about this person who was as pure and as simple as a child. From my boyhood, I have always used observation, investigation, reasoning, and argumentation to form an opinion about a person or a thing. But on that day, my character was dealt a terrible blow, which distressed my heart. Consequently, a fierce determination arose in my mind to truly understand the nature and power of this wonderful man by any possible means.
So here we find one thing. So at that time, Narendranath, not only he was physically strong, he was mentally strong. At the same time, he did not believe in all gods and goddesses. He was influenced by Brahmo Samaj. So those who used to experience various visions, as just now we have discussed, he did not believe all those things. And even he never hesitated to tell such situation as lunacy. And not only that, he had so argumentative nature. He wanted to understand and established in that truth. Until or unless that is met, he was not satisfied. So such a person, when Sri Ramakrishna touches such a person and his strength is it becomes subservient to the strength of that spiritual power. So he had to admit that there is something special. And that purity of mind, the childlike nature of Sri Ramakrishna. So this was his dilemma. In one side, he saw his character, his purity. And in other, which he could not relate that he was Naranarayana. Therefore, this doubt came to him. And this is the need of this time. Many of us, we have doubt, and we had doubt. And this was required for this age. So that to convince there is something higher, there is something powerful than our mental modifications. So Narendranath was an example and very strong contender. Therefore, the importance of Nanda is very, very essential. The importance is there because then only when he can be won over, then only other also will be convinced. And we also like that. Many of us, we did not believe in God. And In the world, there are many people who did not believe in God, and there is no need. Rather, one has to discover what is the reality behind this apparent world. And that is the inquiry that one has to go through. Yes, go ahead.
5. The master treated Narendra as if he had known him for a long time. Thus was my mind occupied with various thoughts and resolutions throughout the day. After this last incident, the master became quite a different person. He began to feed me lovingly as he had during my first visit, and he treated me cordially as if he had known me for a long time. He behaved with me exactly like a man who meets an old friend or relative after a long separation. But feeding and entertaining me, talking to me, and making jokes with me didn't seem to satisfy him. His affectionate behavior created a good deal of anxiety in me. As the day was coming to a close, I asked leave to go. This seemed to make him unhappy, and so on the previous occasion he demanded a promise, "Say that you will come back soon." So on that day I promised as before, and then I returned home.
Go ahead.
Narendra's third visit. We did not know how long it was before Narendra returned. After encountering the master's miraculous power, Narendra had an intense desire to know him, so it seems it must not have been long before he came back to Dakshineshwar. His eagerness must have brought him back to the master as soon as he was able. Because he was attending college, the third visit probably took place on a weekend. When Narendra wanted to investigate something, he lost all interest in food, sleep, or relaxation. He would take no rest until he had mastered the situation. So quite naturally, he was extremely anxious to understand the master. It is certain that during the third visit, Narendra was extremely cautious and very much on his guard lest he fall under a hypnotic spell as before. But what happened was inconceivable. We shall now present what the master and Narendra told us about it.
So because this is very important incident, we'll go through it and then we'll talk about it. Yes.
Narendra loses outer consciousness at the master's touch. On that day, the master invited Narendra for a walk in Jadu Malik's garden, just south of the Dakshineshwar compound, either because the temple complex was crowded with devotees or for some other reason. Jadu and his mother were very devoted to the master, and they had left a standing order with the master that if the master wished to walk in the garden when they were absent, the parlor facing the Ganges should be kept open for him. On that day, the master walked with Narendra in the garden on the bank of the Ganges. As the master and Narendra talked about various things, they eventually came to the parlor, where the master sat down and soon went into samadhi. Narendra sat nearby, closely watching the master's condition, when the master suddenly touched him, just as he had on the previous occasion. Although Narendra was on his guard, he was completely overwhelmed by that powerful touch. This time, he became completely unconscious, not partially as before. When he regained his normal consciousness after some time, he saw the master passing his hand over his chest and smiling at him sweetly and gently.
So what happened that time? Sri Ramakrishna had doubt because Narendra cried out that, "What have you done? I have my parents at home." Therefore, Sri Ramakrishna thought, is it that what I am thinking or Sri Ramakrishna was thinking that is wrong? So he wanted to see that. And that is why he brought Narendranath to Jadu Malik's parlor, which is just behind or by southeast of the Kali temple at Dakshineshwar. So let us read and know what happened. Yes. Go ahead.
Swami, my internet is funky, but
Okay, no problem. Go ahead.
8.
We can take it.
The master asked Narendra various questions. Yeah. Oh, no, wait. We were here.
Yes.
Narendra did not tell us anything about what he experienced when he lost his outer consciousness. We thought that he did not tell us about it because it was a secret. But one day in the course of conversation, the master told us what had happened during the incident, and we realized that Narendra had no memory of it. 8.
Yeah, go ahead.
The master asks Narendra various questions while he is in that state. The master told us, that day after Narendra lost consciousness of his current incarnation, I asked him many questions, such as who he really was, where he had come from, why he had come, been born,
How long he would stay in this world, and so forth. He entered his innermost being and found the correct answers to my questions. These answers confirmed what I had already learned about him in visions. It's forbidden to reveal those things, but I can tell you this. On the day he knows who he really is, he will no longer remain in this world. With a strong effort of will, he will immediately give up his body through the power of yoga. Narendra is a great soul, perfect in meditation. Perfect in meditation means dhyana siddha. And right from his childhood, he was dhyana siddha. Before he would go to sleep, there would be a ball of light that would come in front of his forehead, and it would go on circling, and then all of a sudden it would burst. And not only that, when he used to meditate, he used to experience spiritual truth. So right from his childhood, he was dhyana siddha. Only thing he did not know that it is a special in his case. He used to think that it happens to everyone, but that was not the case. So Sri Ramakrishna wanted to verify what he experienced about him, whether those truths are correct or these are false experiences. But Narendranath answered his questions correctly: who he was, why he took this incarnation, and what is the purpose of his life, all these questions. As we know, Sri Ramakrishna experienced once, he was in Samadhi and his mind was traveling upward. First, it was the realm of name and form. And gradually he entered in the realm of where name and form are united. And then he crossed that barrier of duality. And then he entered in a space where 7 rishis were meditating. And with that unified form, from that unified form, a little portion came as a small child, young child. And that child approached a meditating rishi and put his arm against or on his neck. And child told that I am going, you are to come. And that rishi opened his eyes and nodded in assent. So this was experience of Sri Ramakrishna. So he knew that he is from the realm of 7 rishis. He is Nara Narayana. And on the first day, he tried to give him that identity, but Narendranath was not ready. So Sri Ramakrishna had doubt. So that doubt was removed from his mind. Because in the realm of Maya, in the Mahamaya, anything can happen. So that was the thought behind. And also it is for us, it is for the devotees to understand that Narendra was not a counterfeit, rather his real jewel. Are you there?
Yeah, let's give it a shot.
Yeah, next, later.
Later, the master described to us one of his earlier visions concerning Narendra. We shall mention it here for the reader's convenience, but when the master told us about it, it seemed that he had this vision before Narendra visited Dakshineshwar. 9. The master's wonderful vision concerning Narendra. The master said, "One day I found that my mind was soaring high in samadhi along a luminous path. It soon transcended the stellar universe and entered the subtle realm of ideas. As it ascended higher and higher, I found the path lined with ideal forms of gods and goddesses on both sides. My mind then reached the outer limits of that region, where a luminous barrier separates the sphere of relative existence from that of the absolute. My mind crossed that barrier to enter the transcendental realm, where no corporeal being was visible. Even the gods dare not enter that sublime realm and are content to keep their seats far below. But the next moment I saw 7 venerable rishis seated there in samadhi. It occurred to me that these rishis must have surpassed not only humans, but even the gods in knowledge and holiness, in renunciation and love. Lost in admiration, I was reflecting on their greatness when I saw a portion of that undifferentiated luminous region condense into the form of a divine child. The child came to one of the rishis, tenderly clasped his neck with his lovely arms, and addressing him in a sweet voice, tried to drag his mind down from the state of samadhi. That magic touch roused the rishi from the superconscious state, and he fixed his half-open eyes upon the wonderful child. His beaming countenance showed that the child was the treasure of his heart. In great joy, the divine child spoke to him. "I am going down. You must go with me." The rishi remained mute, but his tender look expressed his assent. As he gazed at the child, he again became immersed in samadhi. I was surprised to see a fragment of his body and mind then descending to earth in the form of a bright light. No sooner had I seen Narendra than I recognized him to be that rishi.
So Sri Ramakrishna was that divine child, and Narendranath was that rishi. You know, this is unthinkable, unimaginable. In one, Sri Ramakrishna says that he enters where there is no duality at all, and how there are 7 rishis. So these are very difficult to understand. But we have to take this experience of Sri Ramakrishna as it is, because we cannot even try to understand. For that, we need to purify ourselves and lift our mind to such a height. Then only we can understand what he tried to convey through these words.
That is Achintya.
Achintya means not, it is inconceivable. Achintya, it cannot be thought of. Veda Ved, Achintya Veda Ved. So, anyway, we go ahead.
10. Narendra's conviction about the master as a result of his direct experience. Narendra was completely dumbfounded when the influence of the master's divine power put him under the same hypnotic spell for a second time. He deeply felt the insignificance of his mental and intellectual power compared to this unsurpassable divine power. His former belief that the master was a monomaniac was changed, but we cannot say that this encounter brought him to understand the meaning and significance of what the master had told him privately during his first visit to Dakshineshwar. He felt that the master must be an extraordinarily great soul endowed with divine power, and that he could at will drive the mind of a person like him to a higher path. He also understood that because the master's will was completely identified with that of God, he would not have the desire to raise everyone's mind to a higher realm, because a person must work through his or her own karma. Narendra was therefore fortunate to receive such unsolicited grace from this great soul.
Yeah, because he was great, he himself was great. There is a note there. The master described this vision to us in his unique, simple language. It is not possible for us to reproduce that language exactly. Having no alternative, we have briefly described this vision, keeping his language as far as possible. When at another time we asked him about the divine child in vision, we learned that the master himself had assumed the form of that child. So Sri Ramakrishna also is from that realm. It is from the same sphere. That is why Sri Ramakrishna is to tell that Narendra is my Shashur Ghar. Like it is like from the family of husband. Anyway, this is very mystic. It is very difficult to understand such language. Shashur Ghar. So we go ahead. Yes, please.
11. Consequently, Narendra's conception of the Guru changes. Narendra was forced to come to this conclusion, and he had to adapt many of his former ideas accordingly. Previously, he had been strongly against accepting a man who, like himself, was a weak and short-sighted, as a guru or a guide to the spiritual world, and carrying out all his instructions without question. This attitude had been strengthened considerably when he joined the Brahmo Samaj, but the last two incidents dealt terrible blows to his beliefs. He realized that on rare occasions, some great souls are born in this world whose extraordinary renunciation, austerities, love, and purity surpasses what the limited minds of ordinary people conceive of as God. And ordinary people would benefit greatly if they accepted those great souls as gurus. Narendra did in fact agree to accept the master as his guru, but at that time declined to accept all of his words indiscriminately.
Yes, so this establishment of faith is very important. Arjuna had similar problem. He used to think that Sri Krishna is his friend. And sometimes he would address him not with great respect, but as his friend. But when he had the vision of the universal form of Sri Krishna, only then he could understand who Sri Krishna was. So such realizations are important in the life of a seeker. Because any word cannot express this. Na vak gacchati, na mano. Their speech cannot go, mind cannot go. This is to be realized in one's own self. Even we cannot express what a sweetmeat tastes like. When we cannot express, we say, oh, it is so sweet. Oh, it is so sweet. But that is not the expression. Therefore, whatever we experience, it cannot be translated into words. And it cannot be conceived. And if that is the case for ordinary things, how can we understand the spiritual reality or spiritual truth? This is to be realized. So one can taste it by cultivating purity, then and seeking it. Then only it will be realized in one's own life. Yes, go ahead.
12. In the master's company, Narendra's spirit of renunciation increases. Because of his experiences in past lives, Narendra had a strong belief from his boyhood onward that one cannot realize God without renunciation. For that reason, although he was a member of the Brahmo Samaj, he had no desire to attend its meetings concerning marriage reform. Narendra's inclination towards renunciation now increased tremendously as he observed the all-renouncing master and realized how extraordinary was the power he wielded.
So this is very natural. This is inner tendency. In all monks, we find such tendency. It is inherent in their life. And whenever any occasion comes against such thoughts, they oppose vehemently. So this was natural in the life of Narendranath. It was ingrained in his life, in his being. So we find that sense of renunciation. That is why even he would not go to that path where even cinema or theater, the theater house is there, let alone red light areas. So he would not travel by that path. Such was his strong sense of renunciation. Yes, go ahead.
13. Narendra resolves not to accept any of the master's words without testing them. At this time, only one thing greatly concerned Narendra. Upon coming in contact with such a powerful and great soul, one usually believes that person's words, either without evaluating them fully, or indeed without testing them at all. He resolved to protect himself from that by any means. For that reason, although the last two meetings had awakened in Narendra a love and respect for the master, he decided not to accept anything that the master said about his visions and experiences without experiencing them himself and examining them carefully, even if this incurred the master's displeasure. So on one hand, he earnestly kept his mind open to receive the novel and hitherto unknown truths of the spiritual world, and on the other, he engaged himself from then on in subjecting the master's visions and his behavior to rigorous testing.
So Sri Ramakrishna would ask all devotees that what they think about Sri Ramakrishna himself. And he would assess by their reply what they thought about him. So one day Narendranath asked, Sri Ramakrishna asked to Narendra, people tell that this is an incarnation of God. What do you say? So Narendra said, I don't subscribe to that idea until or unless I personally realize that. So even he did not care for his displeasure. What is truth? His strong faithfulness to truth. That is very important. And whatever comes, and later he said, truth will not pay homage to the society, to society. It is society to pay homage to truth, for survival. Therefore, truth is very important. As Ramakrishna also would say, that he who follows truth is lying down on the lap of God. Bhagwaner kole শুয়ে আছে. So, what it means, that truth should not be sacrificed for any reason. And it's not to just satisfy Sri Ramakrishna. Oh, yes, yes, everybody says so, then naturally I also see. No. Sri Ramakrishna would not appreciate that also. So, Narendranath was such strong in mind and also a great honor for truth. Yes, go ahead.
14. Narendra's next step. Narendra's keen intellect revealed to him that the words spoken by the master during his first visit, which had led him to consider the master a monomaniac, could only be understood as meaningful if he believed that the master was an avatar. But how could his truth-seeking and rational mind admit this so quickly? He decided that if God ever gave him the ability to understand those words of the master, he would consider them at that time. So without forming any further opinion, he devoted himself to learning from the master and discussing with him how to be blessed with God realization.
Yeah, later, that's why he wrote, that pranam mantra that we recite, Om Sthapagaya cha dharmasya sarva dharma sarupini. Avatar Varisthaya Ramakrishnaya te namah. So this is his respect to Sri Ramakrishna. He is the greatest incarnation of God. So we also believe. Why? Because when Narendranath did not believe that he was God, Sri Ramakrishna was God. But later he said he's like Bhagwaner Baba, like Father of God, that means source of God. From all incarnations come. He has come from that place. So now we can understand why he was so fussy, so very, very particular not to admit Sri Ramakrishna as an incarnation of God. It is for us. And when he states that Advaitattva Samahita Chittam Prujjala Bhakti Patavrita Vittam, he gave a wonderful tribute to Sri Ramakrishna, that he is covering himself in Advaita and also like devotion, full blazing devotion. So, and also Karma Kalevar Madbhuta Cheshtam, and he did wonderful action in this world, which is impossible for ordinary human being to do. And then he offered his obeisance to Sri Ramakrishna, Naradeva. He's like between the divine and the human being. Sometimes he behaved like a human being, sometimes he is totally merged in God. So this is his tribute to Sri Ramakrishna. And also he equated Sri Ramakrishna with Rama, with Krishna. And same Ramakrishna came with the power to redeem the modern world. So with the love for truth and not admitting Sri Ramakrishna's incarnation, and when such a person admits Sri Ramakrishna and praises Sri Ramakrishna with the glorified words, then we have no other way but to admit. And if we want to realize within our lives, then we are to lift ourselves to that level to find the truth. We don't say that one should admit until or unless one experiences oneself. But without trial, if somebody says, "Oh, I don't believe," it has no meaning. So we go ahead. Yes, please.
15. Narendra's mental condition at this time. When a powerful mind replaces an old idea with a new one, it faces strong resistance from within. Narendra now encountered this situation. Although he realized the wonderful power of the master, Narendra could not accept him completely, and although he was attracted to the master, he tried to stay away from him. We shall find out later what happened as a result of these efforts.
So this is a great dilemma in the life of Narendranath. At the one hand, he realized the power of Sri Ramakrishna. But on the other hand, he was not totally convinced because he was not ready. And for that, later he pined for it. He sought the help of Sri Ramakrishna. He pestered Sri Ramakrishna. And then only he blessed with the Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Later he experienced in Kashipur Garden House. So here we find a wonderful interaction of guru and disciple, how a guru acts on disciple and how disciple receives it. And this is very important for our life, for us. Yeah, we go ahead. We have little time.
So we're on chapter 5.
Yes.
The Master's Selfless Love and Narendra. 1. Extraordinary experiences in Narendra's early life. He saw a light while falling asleep. We have already mentioned that Narendra was born with wonderful spiritual tendencies. For that reason, the spiritual experiences that he had before he met the Master were unique. The reader will understand this if we cite a few examples here. Narendra said, "As far back as I can remember, I'd see a marvelous point of light between my eyebrows as soon as I shut my eyes to go to sleep. I watched it and paid great attention as it went through various changes. To see it better, I would lie on my bed like one prostrating before a deity, with forehead touching the ground. That marvelous point of light would change colors and grow bigger and bigger until it took the form of a ball, finally bursting and covering my body from head to foot with a white liquid light. As soon as that happened, I lost outer consciousness and fell asleep. I used to believe this was how everybody went to sleep, and I was under that impression for a long time. When I grew older and began to practice meditation, that point of light would appear to me as soon as I closed my eyes, and I'd concentrate upon it. At that time, I was practicing meditation with a few friends, following the instructions of Devendranath Tagore. We told each other about our visions and experiences, and I discovered that none of them had ever seen that point of light or had gone to sleep as I did."
So this is nothing to explain, so please go ahead.
2. Memories of past lives awaken when he sees a particular place, person, or thing. From my very childhood, whenever I came in contact with a particular object, person, or place, it would sometimes seem as if I were already acquainted with it. I'd try to recall when, but couldn't bring it to mind. Nonetheless, I was not convinced that I had never seen it before. This happened quite often. Perhaps I would be discussing various topics with my friends at a particular place. Someone would say something, and immediately the thought would flash in my mind that some time past, in this very house, I'd had the same discussion with these friends, and on that occasion, this person had said the same thing. After long deliberation, I couldn't ascertain when I'd had such a discussion with them. When I became aware of the doctrine of reincarnation, I thought that perhaps I might have been familiar with those places and people in a previous life, and that partial memories concerning them sometimes surfaced in my mind. Later, I realized that such a conclusion wasn't reasonable. It now seems to me that before I was born, I must have somehow seen, as in motion pictures, the people and things I would come in contact with in this life. Those memories now arise in my mind from time to time.
Yeah, Sri Ramakrishna, sorry, Swami Vivekananda later in a lecture, he said that I am talking to you today, and as the various dice, when it is thrown, the particular combination will be repeated after a certain throw. Similarly, whatever I am speaking today, this has happened many times before, and it will happen umpteen number of times later. It is like a film. So in a film, we see the same sequence show after show. Similarly, this happens. So later, this was told by him. But it is possible that before he was born, he had that experience. And what of him? Many times I also feel that way. Some, like when I was in Australia, I saw a place. I said, this I saw before. So this is not absolutely abnormal, but this is very normal. And sometimes we have a dream, and the same sequence we can have in our waking state. Why? Because these are relative experiences. Whatever we see in a dream, same sequence can be repeated in our waking state also. So this is not abnormal, but it is normal. Whether it is from previous birth as a consequence of a film, or it was shown before the birth, we are not very keen to find that, because that's not important. Important is to find out our real self. So we rather will concentrate there. Whether dreams are real or not real, or should we give enough importance to those dreams? These are not important. Yeah, go ahead. Time is up. Okay. So hope there is no question.
What realm was Holy Mother from?
Holy Mother is Parama Prakriti. Parama, the power of Sri Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna Sthiteya. Sarva Vidya Swarupabdam Sri Sharadam Pranamamyam. So, Holy Mother is from Sri Ramakrishna. The power, Shakti of Sri Ramakrishna. And Sri Ramakrishna said, she is my Shakti go. Shakti means power of Sri Ramakrishna. And Holy Mother resides in Sri Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna Sthita here. She is always established in Sri Ramakrishna. So Sri Ramakrishna, another form, you can say. When she wants to create, so Sri Ramakrishna takes the form of Holy Mother. Okay, good. Very nice question. Thank you.
I had a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Can an incarnation do a wrong thing because like some people criticize?
Okay, incarnation cannot do wrong things. But people say because they have jaundice. If somebody has jaundice, they will see something wrong. It is like Sri Ramakrishna gave example. A perfect dancer, whatever he does, everything will be a gesture or posture of dance. And those who are expert in music, they cannot sing a wrong note because they are so perfected. And sometimes suppose, like sitarist, Ravi Shankar, while playing, all of a sudden, tension is loosened. So he would, in between that, he would correct that. So as an expert dancer cannot put a false step, similar, incarnation cannot do. But people see it. Why people see? It is because of their inefficiency, because they cannot understand, apprehend. Their apprehension, power of apprehension is not that. Therefore, they'll see. So incarnations cannot do a wrong thing. Even whatever they do, that is the way. See, Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna took a vow that he will not take any weapon in the battle of Kurukshetra, and he'll not fight for Pandavas. But Bhishma Pitamaha took a vow that day that, oh God, I'll beg you to take weapon. And then he started fighting against Sri Krishna, even say Arjuna, but with all the arrows, even it was touching Sri Krishna. And Sri Krishna saw that now I have to protect Arjuna and also have to honor the vow taken by Bhishma, because my devotees are greater than me. I have to honor my devotees. So that time he took a wheel of a chariot and started toward Bhishma to kill him. When this is very important incident that happened, and it was described by Bhishma himself, when just before passing away, he praised Sri Krishna and he said, remember that day, just to honor my words, you took weapon. So apparently Sri Krishna aberrated from his own promise, but it is for a reason. The reason was to honor his own devotees, own devotee. So, it is his creation. It is the creation of self. Therefore, whatever he does with a particular purpose. So it is not that we should find faults in that. Apparently, one can say that when he took that pledge that I'll not take any weapon, he should not have taken. No, there are various stages. Some are finer. Here the finer is in a balance. That should I not honor the words my devotee, or should I cling to my selfish promise? So he thought it is better to protect my devotees. That's why greatness is increased. So anyway, your answer is yes, he cannot do anything wrong.
Thank you.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tatsat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Thank you.
Pranam, man.
Namaskar.
Jai Masami.
Jai Ma, Hari Om. Namaste.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Namaste. Thank you.
Jai Ma.
Jai Ma. Jai Ma.